These Japanese bikes were built to lead the pack, but now dealers can't get rid of them fast enough. If you're in the market for a motorcycle, this list matters. Miss it, and you could end up overpaying for the wrong bike while the real bargains slip right past you. Number 7. Yamaha XSR 700. When it first entered the market, this machine promised to blend retro appeal with modern performance, but in practice, it missed the mark on both fronts. It tried to recapture the golden era of classic Japanese street bikes while using a platform borrowed from the NC750, but the results have left buyers confused. Riders looking for a raw, throwback experience feel it's too modernized. Meanwhile, performance-focused buyers are left wanting more aggression, speed, and sharp handling. This left the XSR 700 floating between two markets that no longer know what to do with it. Powering this motorcycle is a 689 cubic centimeter parallel twin engine producing 73 horsepower and 49 pound-feet of torque. It's smooth, reliable, and decently punchy in the mid-range, but it doesn't deliver the kind of response that gets the blood pumping. It's a comfortable engine for city riding and the occasional weekend twisty road, but it falls short when pushed hard. Compared to the sportier MT-07 or the more refined Z900 RS, the XSR lacks both bite and polish. The suspension system consists of standard telescopic front forks and a rear monoshock that leans toward comfort over precision. On city streets, the setup offers a relatively plush ride, but at higher speeds or under aggressive cornering, the chassis feels vague. Braking is handled by dual front disc brakes with 4-piston calipers and a single rear disc. While the stopping power is adequate, it does not match the more responsive braking systems found on newer middleweight naked bikes. The ergonomics are another sticking point. The flat seat, wide handlebars, and slightly rear-set pegs create a rider triangle that tries to split the difference between a sporty and upright posture, but ends up being awkward for longer rides. Some riders complain that the seating position causes lower back strain after an hour or two, while others find the tank's shape restrictive when leaning into corners. Weighing in at 410 pounds, the XSR 700 is reasonably light, giving it decent maneuverability. It's easy to toss through traffic and stable in tight urban conditions, which makes it a good commuter on paper. However, it doesn't offer any wind protection, advanced rider aids, or touring comfort, further limiting its appeal for real-world daily use. You also don't get traction control, adjustable throttle modes, or cornering anti-lock braking systems. For a bike that costs around $9,199, that lack of features is hard to justify in 2025. The styling has been a major point of contention. The round headlight, stitched seat, and minimalist tank design are all nods to the past, but they don't flow together in a coherent way. It feels like the design was assembled from a parts bin labeled retro, rather than shaped with intention. Compared to more successful throwback designs from Triumph or Royal Enfield, the XSR looks disjointed. The MT-07's aggressive Street Fighter vibe has broad appeal. The XSR's awkward mix of vintage and modern does not. From bikes that are stuck in the past, we shift to one that never fully arrived in the present. We dug deep to find what dealerships don't want you to know. So if this list has saved you time, money, or regret, hit that subscribe button. And if you've owned any of these bikes, we want to hear from you in the comments. Number 6. Honda Fury. It was designed to look like the outlaw's choice, a stretched front fork, low-slung seat, and raked-out bars that scream custom-built freedom. But the truth is, this one rides more like a corporate memo. The Fury made waves when it first dropped because it looked different from Honda's usual lineup, a radical departure from its traditional touring and commuter machines. Yet for all its effort to channel the spirit of a garage-built chopper, what buyers got instead was a perfectly assembled imitation. And that's the heart of the problem. It looks rebellious, but rides too refined. Cruiser riders, especially those coming from the Harley-Davidson world, want more than paint and polish. They want grit, growl, and something that rattles both the mirrors and the rider's soul. The Fury doesn't give you that. It gives you silence dressed as noise. Underneath the chrome and stretched geometry, the Fury is powered by a 1,312 cubic centimeter V-twin engine that produces 57 horsepower and 78 pound-feet of torque. Those numbers put it squarely behind most V-twin competitors in its class, especially when stacked against Harley's 107 or Indian's Thunderstroke platform. The Fury's power delivery is smooth, too smooth. It doesn't rumble, it hums. And for a bike that looks like it belongs in a Sons of Anarchy montage, that kind of refinement feels out of place. This is a bike that's begging to be raw, but instead shows up in a button-down shirt. The 5-speed transmission shifts without complaint, and the shaft final drive reduces maintenance needs, but none of that helps when the soul just isn't there. In terms of physical presence, the Fury tips the scale at 672 pounds. It features a single disc brake up front and another in the rear, both with hydraulic calipers that provide average stopping power for a bike this size. The suspension setup consists of a 45mm telescopic front fork with 5.1 inches of travel and a rear monoshock hidden beneath the frame, delivering 3.7 inches of travel. That geometry prioritizes looks over lean angles, and it shows. Handling is best described as deliberate. The long rake and high trail numbers make low-speed maneuvering feel heavy, especially in tight urban spaces. On the open road, it holds a line well, but don't expect flickability or confident twisty road performance. The 21-inch front wheel and 18-inch rear pair well with the overall silhouette, but do little to enhance agility. Ergonomically, the Fury delivers the usual chopper recipe. Low seat, high bars, and forward controls. Taller riders will appreciate the legroom, but shorter riders may feel stretched out, especially during longer rides. The seat height is 26.9 inches, giving most riders decent ground reach, but the comfort fades after about an hour in the saddle. The narrow seat padding and aggressive rider triangle make this bike better suited for short cruises than long-distance hauls. Fuel capacity sits at 3.4 gallons, which further reinforces its around-town limitation. With a starting price of $10,499, the Fury occupies a difficult spot. It's too expensive for new riders, too polished for hardcore cruiser fans, and too niche for general appeal. Dealers across the country are finding that despite its head-turning looks, it's a bike that sits, sometimes for months, while newer, more dynamic models ride out the door. If the Fury couldn't fake the feeling of freedom, the next bike couldn't even decide what kind of ride it wanted to be. Serious riders know it's about more than the bike. The gear matters. Find our top picks in the description below. Number 5. Kawasaki Ninja 650. There was a time when the Ninja 650 was considered the ideal balance between a beginner bike and a serious street performer. It had the look of a true sport machine and the reliability that Kawasaki has always been known for. But today, in a market that demands either raw performance or practical everyday comfort, the Ninja 650 has become a bike without a real home. Riders coming from smaller displacements find it too soft to justify the jump, while experienced motorcyclists simply overlook it in favor of sharper or more comfortable machines. It's the kind of middleweight that ends up sitting on showroom floors, not because it is bad, but because it lacks a clear reason to buy. Under the tank, the Ninja 650 is powered by a 649 cubic centimeter parallel twin engine. It produces 67 horsepower and 48 pound-feet of torque numbers that sound decent on paper but feel muted in real-world use, especially when compared to newer offerings from Yamaha and Aprilia. The power delivery is smooth but uninspiring, with much of the excitement confined to the higher rev range. That performance, paired with a fairly upright riding position and calm throttle response, gives the bike a commuter-friendly character. But that's part of the problem. Riders looking for a true sport experience often find it lacks bite, while commuters would rather have something more comfortable and upright like the Versys. The chassis itself is compact and manageable, making the bike easy to ride in city conditions. Curb weight sits around 420 pounds, which is light enough to make maneuvering simple for newer riders. The front suspension features a conventional telescopic fork, while the rear has an adjustable preload monoshock, decent for daily riding but a clear step down from the fully adjustable units found on higher-end sport bikes. The braking system consists of dual front pedal-style disc brakes with 2-piston calipers and a single rear disc brake. While the setup is competent and includes anti-lock braking system as standard, it doesn't feel as sharp or confidence-inspiring under hard braking as what you'd get from radially mounted calipers or more advanced systems in the same category. Styling-wise, the Ninja 650 still holds on to the aggressive fairings and twin LED headlights that give it the illusion of being a more hardcore sport bike. But looks can only go so far when the ride doesn't back it up. The relatively tall handlebars and step seat make it more comfortable than most supersports, but they also dilute the aggressive stance that the aesthetics promise. For a certain kind of rider, that combination works perfectly. Just not enough of them to keep the model moving off dealership floors. As buyers increasingly look for bikes with more versatility, more power, or more character, the Ninja 650 has become easy to pass over. At a starting price of $8,399, it sits in a dangerous pricing zone. It is more expensive than entry-level bikes like the Yamaha R3 and lacks the technological refinement of machines like the Aprilia RS 660, which offers more power, better suspension, and more advanced electronics for only a marginal increase in cost. Even within Kawasaki's own lineup, riders are drifting toward the more upright and versatile Z650 or stepping up to the sharper XSR, which delivers track-ready power and handling. Now let's look at a bike that was once a symbol of muscle, but today it's too heavy to carry its own legacy. Number 4. Yamaha VMAX. A legend once feared on the drag strip now sits gathering dust in dealerships across the country. When Yamaha introduced this machine, it promised raw power, aggressive styling, and a unique riding experience that pushed the limits of what a muscle cruiser could be. For a while, it worked. The VMAX had no true competitor, but in today's motorcycle market, where riders want performance, comfort, and versatility in one package, the VMAX feels like a time capsule, one that's hard to ride and even harder to sell. At the center of the VMAX is a 1,679 cubic centimeter V4 engine that delivers a staggering 174 horsepower and 113 pound-feet of torque. It's a power plant built for drama. Twist the throttle and you're launched forward with brute force. The engine delivers its power with sharp responsiveness, offering a surge that is thrilling on a straight line. But with that power comes sacrifice. Fuel economy is poor and maintenance costs are steep due to its high-performance internals. Even basic servicing can be expensive compared to other cruisers in this price bracket. Insurance premiums are also higher due to the VMAX's classification as a high-output machine. In terms of chassis and handling, the VMAX isn't built for city riding. Weighing in at 684 pounds, it is significantly heavier than most modern muscle bikes. Low-speed maneuverability is difficult, and tight urban corners quickly become a workout. The suspension system includes an advanced, fully adjustable telescopic front fork and a monoshock rear setup that's tuned to handle the engine's output, but the ride can feel stiff on uneven pavement. The braking system features dual front disc brakes with radial-mounted calipers and a single rear disc, offering solid stopping power. Still, it takes effort to rein in all that weight and speed, making it more suited to open roads than urban cruising. While the VMAX's styling still turns heads, it's not enough to carry it anymore. The bodywork, air scoops, and aggressive stance make a bold statement, but many riders now prefer designs that blend classic aesthetics with modern line. Compared to bikes like the Diavel or even the Lowrider S, the VMAX feels bulky and less refined. Riders today are increasingly drawn to machines that offer high performance and everyday usability. The VMAX is unapologetically excessive, and that excess is now working against it. Another challenge for the VMAX is its pricing. With a starting price of $17,999, it lands squarely in premium territory. And yet, it lacks many of the features that buyers in this segment now expect, like traction control, multiple ride modes, or an intuitive infotainment system. Riders paying this much money want more than horsepower. They want adjustability, tech, and comfort for long-distance travel. The VMAX, in contrast, offers a narrow window of thrills for a high price and little practicality. Over the years, Yamaha has made minimal updates to the VMAX, and the model's long absence from major redesigns is beginning to show. It has become a niche bike, a specialty machine that appeals to a shrinking group of power-hungry riders willing to overlook its shortcomings. But that group is getting smaller every year. With competition offering better rounded packages, the VMAX is slowly fading from relevance. Dealerships are finding it increasingly difficult to justify its presence on the floor. That was a bike with power few can handle. Next up is one that offers too little for too much. By now, you've seen which bikes are dragging dealerships down. If you don't want to make the same mistake, hit subscribe and tell us. What's the worst bike you've ever bought? Number 3. Honda NC750 X DCT. At first glance, this bike looks like a smart solution for practical riders. It's upright, it's got storage where the fuel tank should be, and it doesn't try to impress with flash or flare. But step into a dealership this July and you'll notice something strange. These bikes are just sitting there. Weeks turn into months. The same unit that rolled off the truck in April is still there by Independence Day, and that's because the NC750 X DCT doesn't excite anyone. It tries to be everything, commuter, tourer, utility bike, but ends up in a category no rider truly connects with. Even with Honda's legendary engineering and reputation for reliability, this bike has become one of the toughest sells on the floor. Under the tank, or rather under the seat, you'll find a 745 cubic centimeter parallel twin engine that produces 58 horsepower and 48 pound-feet of torque. While that may be adequate for relaxed commuting and weekend errands, it doesn't offer enough thrill for sport riders or enough torque for long-distance touring. What it does offer is smooth, predictable power delivery with minimal vibration. Paired with Honda's dual-clutch transmission, it allows riders to switch between automatic and manual modes. But here's the issue. Traditionalists don't want an automatic motorcycle, and new riders often find the DCT awkward and disconnected. It's a great system on paper, but in practice it alienates more buyers than it attracts. In terms of handling and ride quality, the NC750 X DCT is competent but not inspiring. The front suspension consists of a telescopic fork with 6 inches of travel, and the rear uses a ProLink monoshock setup. Braking duties are handled by a single 320mm front disc with a 2-piston caliper and a 240mm rear disc with a single piston caliper. Anti-lock braking comes standard. The bike weighs 470 pounds wet, making it manageable in city traffic and light enough for most riders to handle easily. But again, there's no spark, no sensation of fun. It rides like an appliance, not a motorcycle. One of the bike's more unique features is its storage compartment in place of a traditional fuel tank. This faux tank holds a full-face helmet or a bag of groceries, which is handy for urban riders. The real tank is located under the passenger seat and holds a modest 3.7 gallons. That contributes to the bike's excellent fuel economy, averaging around 65 miles per gallon, but again, that's more exciting to accountants than to riders. The digital display is clear and functional, and the upright seating position provides comfort for commuters. Still, none of these features are enough to build enthusiasm among motorcycle enthusiasts. For older riders who remember the raw feel of carbureted cruisers or the iconic pull of a V-twin, the NC750 X DCT feels sterile, like something designed by committee. Price-wise, it starts at around $9,399, which places it uncomfortably close to bikes with more power, more emotion, and more character. At that price point, buyers are cross-shopping used adventure bikes like the Yamaha Tenere 700, sport tourers like the Kawasaki Versus, or even stripped-down cruisers with old-school appeal. And when faced with those choices, the NC750 X DCT often fades into the background. And if that bike confused buyers, the next one just made them walk away entirely. Number 2. Kawasaki W800. It was supposed to bring vintage charm back to modern motorcycling, an echo of the 1960s British bikes, reimagined with Japanese engineering. But the W800 has struggled from the moment it rolled into showrooms. The bike seems stuck between two eras, trying to satisfy fans of old-school aesthetics while living in a world that demands technology, performance, and comfort. Unfortunately, it delivers none of these well enough to justify its place. Enthusiasts looking for a nostalgic experience tend to prefer bikes with more emotional heritage and name recognition, like the Triumph Bonneville or the Royal Enfield Interceptor. Meanwhile, modern riders who demand cutting-edge performance and features simply look elsewhere. That leaves the W800 in a kind of no man's land, a motorcycle designed for a rider who may no longer exist. Powering the W800 is a 773 cubic centimeter air-cooled parallel twin engine that produces 47 horsepower and 46 pound-feet of torque. This classic long-stroke configuration is smooth and refined, but underwhelming by today's standard. The engine was designed to replicate the feel and character of vintage motorcycles, complete with a distinctive vertical cylinder layout and a gentle thump that echoes from the exhaust. However, compared to its rivals, the power delivery feels sluggish and uninspired. There's just not enough torque to make highway riding exciting or low-end pull to make it feel substantial around town. The specs are charming on paper, but when it comes time to ride, the W800 often leaves riders asking for more. The chassis does little to help the situation. The bike weighs in at 488 pounds, which makes it manageable for most riders, but the high center of gravity can catch you off guard during slow-speed maneuvers. The braking setup consists of a single front disc brake and a single rear disc. Adequate but not impressive. The front suspension uses standard telescopic forks, while the rear is supported by twin shocks. This setup is tuned for casual riding and is perfectly fine on smooth pavement, but when the road gets bumpy or twisty, the W800 feels vague and disconnected. There's not enough damping support to maintain confidence when the pace picks up, and the bike lacks the suspension adjustability seen on more capable retro-styled machines. The ergonomics are friendly at first glance. The upright handlebars, mid-mounted foot pegs, and plush seats seem well suited for relaxed cruising, and visually, the bike makes a solid first impression. The chrome accents. Classic round headlight, wire-spoked wheels, and teardrop tank all suggest vintage authenticity. However, the design feels more like a tribute than a revival. The proportions can appear stretched or awkward, especially when parked next to a more balanced Bonneville or even the more affordable Royal Enfield options. The styling is undeniably clean, but maybe too clean for a category built on grit and authenticity. Price is another factor holding the W800 back. With a starting price of $9,999, it sits dangerously close to far more refined competitors. Triumph offers multiple variations of the Bonneville, some with liquid-cooled engines, ride modes, and traction control. Royal Enfield's Interceptor, while more basic, delivers nearly the same performance for thousands less. If mixing the past with the present left this bike in limbo, the next one tried to reinvent everything and lost its audience in the process. Number 1. Honda CT X 1300. It looks like a cruiser. It rides like a tourer. But the real problem is, no one quite knows what to do with it. The Honda CT X 1300 is one of those motorcycles that dared to be different, but in doing so ended up without a tribe. It was supposed to bridge the gap between relaxed cruising and long-distance comfort, all wrapped in a futuristic design that set it apart from Harley-Davidson or Indian motorcycles. But instead of making waves, it quietly sank into obscurity. At the core of the CTX 1300 is a 1260 cubic centimeter VI4 engine. It produces 83 horsepower and 78 pound-feet of torque. Those numbers aren't bad for a mid-sized touring platform, but they don't quite scream excitement either. The power delivery is linear and ultra-smooth thanks to Honda's signature refinement. It's more than enough to handle highway merges and passing lanes, but riders expecting raw character or spirited acceleration will come away disappointed. This engine is tuned for efficiency and comfort, not drama. The CTX tips the scales at 725 pounds. That kind of weight wouldn't be a deal breaker if it came with the full package of touring features, but that's where things get confusing. The fairing is fixed and wide, like a sport touring machine. The seat is low and cruiser style with forward controls that stretch the legs out. The handlebars rise up like a traditional bagger, but the windscreen is short and sporty. And unlike other premium touring bikes, there's no adjustable wind protection, no infotainment system, and no luggage storage as standard. The result is a bike that borrows design language from several categories but never fully embraces any of them. The braking system includes dual front disc brakes and a single rear disc, delivering steady stopping performance. Suspension duties are handled by a conventional telescopic fork at the front and twin shocks at the rear. It's a setup that prioritizes ride quality and straight-line stability. Over smooth roads and long hauls, the CTX feels planted and comfortable, but in tighter corners or uneven city pavement, it shows its age and weight. There's no advanced electronic suspension or lean-sensitive technology here, just a basic setup aimed at simplicity. Another point of contention was the ergonomics. The riding position is undeniably relaxed, with a wide saddle and generous legroom, but the mix of cruiser foot controls and high handlebars can feel awkward on longer rides. There's not quite enough wind protection for true touring comfort, especially at highway speeds. And while the seat is plush, taller riders often complain to feeling cramped due to the bike's unusual proportions. These minor issues stacked up over time, and many riders found themselves fatigued faster than expected. When it comes to price, the CTX 1300 entered the market at around $17,000. That positioned it directly against well-established heavyweight touring motorcycles that offered more features, more character, and stronger resale value. Even within Honda's own lineup, the Goldwing stood as a more complete package. Riders simply didn't see the value in the CTX, and many opted for used Harley-Davidson models instead. That wraps up our deep dive into the bikes dealers are quietly trying to clear. If any of these surprised you, smash that like button, sound off in the comments, and subscribe so you never ride blind again.